Victims of stalking, harassment, child sexual abuse and other sex crimes could soon be able to challenge the sentence handed to their perpetrators if they don't think it's tough enough. Under government plans, 14 offences are to be added to the Unduly Lenient Sentence Scheme, which examines Crown Court punishments. Advocates say the changes would give victims a louder voice if they don't feel that justice has been served. Joining me now from Berkshire is Tracy Morgan, an anti-stalking campaigner who's a victim of stalking herself, and in Essex, former prisoner Steve Dagworthy, who's now a prison consultant. Hello to you both. Tracy Morgan, firstly, your reaction to this expansion of the unduly lenient scheme?
Yeah, it's a big step forward in acknowledging that stalking, as well as the other crimes, sometimes it's recognised that they're not taken seriously enough within the criminal justice system. And this gives victims an opportunity of a voice, as you say, where they haven't had it before.
It's not just victims, though, is it? Because anyone can ask for a sentence to be reviewed, even if they've got no connection with the case.
That is the case, yes. That could mean police officers, anybody that feels that strongly against this sentence. So I think it's a good idea. Particularly, I'm concentrating on the victims and the families and those affected by a certain crime.
Steve, is it right that victims should be consulted and have a voice, as it was described by Tracy there, in the sentencing process?
Well, I think society as a whole should feel confident that there's enough deterrent and sentences are in line with the crime that's been committed, and that obviously includes victims. We have a system in place already, don't we, where if a defendant feels that his sentence is too large or it's manifestly excessive, then he can appeal to have it reduced, in the same way that the Attorney General can ask for sentences to be increased. So yes, it is very, very important. But what we have to look at, in my opinion, is that the fact that what do we do with these people when they go to prison? And it's more important that the sentence is effective, not necessarily the length, but it's effective, so that when they're in prison, then they go through the rehabilitation process, so that when they come out as reformed characters and not like to reoffend again, which at the moment we fail to do. So there is a slight worry that we've got a hole in the bucket. Yeah, we're just pouring more water into it.
Yeah, and Steve, we obviously have a problem with overcrowding in our prisons. Extending sentences further is only going to exacerbate that.
Exactly. I mean, I understand the government's dictum at the moment is to increase sentences, more police, which is a good idea, more prison spaces. It all sounds great, doesn't it? But the problem is that our system is unfit for purpose. There are a lot of people in prison who, frankly, should possibly be let back into the community because they're deemed risk assessed as being safe back into the community. And those that are in prison should be those who need the rehabilitative process, not those that are just simply being warehoused. But I come back to my point, is that, yes, it is important that society, including the victims, and probably more importantly the victims, feel that justice has been served. But the point is, what do we do with people when they're in prison? We have to rehabilitate people to make sure they don't reoffend when they come out, or even come out worse than when they went in.
Tracy Morgan, you're nodding to that point.
Yes, I wholeheartely agree. And over the years, when my stalker's gone into prison, yeah, he's learnt and then come out again. And my argument was always, there's a rotation going in and out of prison. So it's actually dealing with the problem and the issue, as Steve says. What are the initiatives for people or perpetrators of this crime? There are a number of initiatives going on. There are a number of pilots going on, multi-agency approaches to tackle the actual problem. But I agree, it certainly has to be tackled.
Tracy, what difference would this have made to you when your case was going through the legal processes?
I think, for the past 25 years, I've always said that he has always been able to appeal his sentence and conviction where I had no voice. It's very much, and it still is to a point, very much the criminal justice system. There is no victims justice system, and victims have always just something that comes along with a case. my stalker has over 20 convictions relating to his stalking of me. So, and there are times when it was derisory and non-existent. So, had I had a voice then, who knows, what may have happened. I would have been able to challenge it and felt empowered to do so.
Um,
And it's about victims' rights as well. I think we need more. There is a move towards it, and over the years we've had like token gestures. However, I know that the work of the London Victims Commissioner in the past has worked very hard amongst other people to bring in a lot more rights and um, implementation of projects to bring victims more central to the system. A bit of balance is needed.
Yeah, about balance, that the words that Tracy said there, Steve, that it's the criminal justice system. Where is the victim in all of this?
Well, I mean, it is the criminal justice system, and it's the system that we have. The problem is, I know I feel very sorry for Tracy, and she proves my point, where her offender came out and re-offended, 20 times or whatever. I mean, that's shocking, the fact that he wasn't dealt with whilst he was in prison. But we have to be a little bit careful when we pander to the public needs. I mean, if you remember, not so long ago, I think it was 2011, when the then Justice Secretary introduced the IPP sentence, which has become a stain on our society, where we've got prisoners that are being locked up without any prospect of release until they've proven that they will not offend again. There's something like 3,000 of them in prison at the moment. There was a TV programme last night. It cost the taxpayer £150 million a year to keep them there. So we've got to balance the act a little bit. And I agree that victims should be heard. Their victim statements should be read out in court, and the judge should take that into consideration. But the victims are represented by the Crown Prosecution Service, who are part of the criminal justice system, and their job is to make sure that they get the best result for the victims and coming back to society at large. But I do worry that we are just extending sentences. That's not the answer, just putting in more people in prison for longer periods of time. The answer is actually dealing with them whilst they're in prison to make sure they don't offend when they come back out.
Tracy, I just wonder, from your point of view, what constitutes an unduly lenient sentence? Because presumably, having been through what you've been through, no sentence is going to seem long enough.
Well, in my case, and in cases of the stalking and the obsessive behaviour, it's about taking away the fear of the victim and taking away the risk, really. So it's addressing the problem. So with stalkers, there are so many different types. For instance, there's mental health, who has the smaller a number. Personality disorders. Well, why are we not looking at personality disorders? Why are we not looking at ways of addressing those? And obviously, some of the categories are mad, bad, and evil. So it's addressing the different types of stalker, the typologies, the motivations, and actually tackling the problem. But it's about taking the perpetrator away from the victim, so that risk goes down. And we're talking about murder prevention here. We're not talking about some nuisance crime or an argument over a hedge, which is what it used to be. And in some cases, it still is looked at as quite a minor nuisance crime.
OK, Tracy Morgan, Steve Dagworthy, thank you both very much indeed.